We are Rogue Media Sports.
A lot can happen between falling in love with a house online and owning it. Between imagining living there and breathing in your new home for the first time. Having an advocate who can help you navigate the complex world of financing, inspections, negotiating, analyzing the market, and talking through any anxieties that may pop up, that can make all the difference. That's what the expertise of a Realtor can do for you. Realtors are members of the National Association of Realtors and bound by a code of ethics, because that's who we are.
You haven't heard about the McCrispy yet? Well, then, you probably haven't heard the sweet silence after the first crispy bite either. Go try it for yourself to hear the best nut sound you've ever heard.
Okay, I think this is working. We are part of the Doomsday podcast
awesome.
now.
I heard we had a little podcast thing going. So you got a temporary spot. There you go.
It may be permanent. Don't say temporary quite yet. This thing's taken off. It is time for another episode of the Doomsday podcast. Ed Werder in the studio, Frito Nation Productions, of course. Mark Frito Friedman, Matt Mosley with you. And, boy, as we get ready, it's a sad time because we do have just a tad bit of downtime before training camp. But, Ed, one of the things we do, we keep trudging on. And as folks just heard, Scott Linehan. I mean, we continue. I mean, in most podcasts, I have to say this would be like one of the biggest names they've secured. Scott Linehan, we're happy to have him. One of the many, though, in the kind of long line, Dak, Zeke, Wade Phillips, Chris Mortensen, Goose Goslin. Who am I missing? I mean,
Doug
keep going.
Peterson, the Eagles head coach.
Doug Peterson, Eagles head coach. We've had a good run here, and that's why we're going to take a quick break.
And you've got your seaside shirt on already, I see.
I know. I'm ready to go to the beach.
Your hair's not combed.
It was earlier. I sort of want to relaunch when you go into the Hall of Fame. Like, I think that's just perfect timing. So we'll be more about that as we go on. But
we won't do anything early in the Cowboys camp?
We'll figure it out. We'll figure that all out.
I'm trying to get people know when to look for us, and you just basically said that you're taking an extra week and a half or so off because they'll be in camp for 10 days. I got to get ready for a game to play on that weekend.
We'll get all this straightened out, I assure you. But the main thing is, I thought as we get ready to let folks listen to the full interview with Scott Linehan, a couple of different things that he talked about. Obviously, Dak and Zeke are huge. Later in the show, you're going to have some additional notes on those guys. But it's funny to see, and he's a guy who was with Matt Stafford, and he's been around a lot of big time. I guess I don't know if he and Bulger crossed paths. I mean, he was with the Rams at one point.
Rams, right.
So, but all
Bradford,
that to say, probably Sam Bradford at some point. Been around a lot of quarterbacks, and I just continue to hear even veterans like Scott Linehan kind of marvel at Dak Prescott.
And it's not just his on-the-field decision-making and poise and his natural inclination to protect the football. Last year he had, 23 touchdown passes and 4 interceptions, and only Tom Brady was better than that. And that was as a rookie, which is incredible stat for a quarterback protecting the football. But beyond that, it seems that the thing that really convinces them that he's the guy for a long time here and going to play at that level or higher is, sort of the intangible things, his charisma, his leadership, the way teammates gravitate toward him, his study habits. He really does seem to be a guy who is all about football. I think there are very few times when that's not what he's doing, when he's not preparing himself, when he's not training. He is all in on football, and it seems like that's the case all the time.
Yep. It makes me think Bill Parcells would have enjoyed this guy.
More than...
No, I'm not saying more than. I'm just saying There's not a lot of celebrity quarterback in this guy. Who knows? That might change. He's obviously
Certainly
getting a lot more opportunities, but
it's happened to other people at the position.
I have no clue who you're talking about. Without further ado, here is Scott.
I'm not saying I'm not criticizing anybody.
Here's Scott Linehan with the Doomsday Podcast.
By the way, the name Doomsday, do you like that?
I mean,
having grown up.
It goes back to the old, the kind of some old tradition around here.
Yeah.
So, that's
Mostly
good.
ask everybody like only he knows what Doomsday means around here.
No, but it does have a name that people. But what's sad is younger people. Like I would imagine if we asked some of your who did we ask? Dak knew and Jalen knew. Yeah. So that was good.
Yeah.
At least they knew some of the history.
That's good.
Now,
Can I play off? Can I ask the first question and play off?
I'd
Doomsday?
rather you not, but go ahead.
I mean, it seemed to be Doomsday last year when Tony got hurt in the preseason, and you had to go with Dak. Dak obviously accomplished great things as a young quarterback. What are your expectations for year 2?
Well, I just think we pick up where we left off. We got to get better at some things. We knocked on the door. We didn't quite kick it in, so we obviously got work to do. But you got to build on the good things. There's a lot of good things for a young player, but people be gunning for him, studying him a little more. You're not going to sneak up on anybody. They're going to find out what it is about your game that is strong and what maybe wasn't as good. And you really dig deep and you study. Say, hey, I got to be better against this certain. Whether it's this blitz or this coverage, that they might be working at as my potential kryptonite, so to speak. And so I think you really got to hone in on that and be a little proactive with it.
Going into year 2 and watching his development, obviously had a remarkable season. Do you, even now, before you get to training camp, start to give him more and more? I mean, it's not like, he was just a game manager or whatever, but I mean, how much more do you put on his plate now? Because you had to, help a rookie through a season.
But every day we give him something more. This just makes sense to do it in a systematic and timely fashion. I don't think say, hey, Dak, second year you need to do 10 times more. You need to do a few things more every day, just like you did last year. Where you started the season and where you finished. Yeah. We were doing things at the end of the year we didn't even dream of doing at the beginning of the year. But there is a time factor that needs to go by. You can't just say, hey, listen, we're gonna have you go up there. You're gonna call your own plays on third down. You're gonna do this, and hey, we'd like you to, take 5 plays and they're yours. I mean, that's our job. Put him in position to succeed, and his job is to go out and execute the plays we call in the situations that we're in. And that's the one thing he's probably one of his best attributes is he plays his position. He takes it to another level based on a guy that does all the intangible stuff that, some guys just don't get. He's got that part. So the mental side, the experience side, that comes with daily reps and really off-field preparation that he does. He's got some rare work ethic type stuff, so I think that's going to be. I think that's going to take care of us.
Is there any example you can give that work ethic that you've been around a lot of quarterbacks and young quarterbacks at that? Is there anything, a situation you can point to or something he does that sort of stands out to you from other guys you've worked with?
Not really, but one thing I do notice, and I notice it more now that I've been around him for a year, is he's always going around and kind of like trying to give a little nugget to somebody. And as opposed to waiting, oh, yeah, I forgot to tell you, you're supposed to break out on that play. He doesn't miss that opportunity to tell a switzer or some guy, hey, listen, when we get that, I want you to run 5 yards up and break out. If you get that, that's what you do. So when it happens tomorrow or training camp or in the third preseason game, we're ready to go. So he's always, he does that. It's so like veteran-like. You'd think you'd have to say, hey, Dak, make sure you go over and talk football with your teammates. He just does that. So there's 1,000 probably, examples I could think of, but it's more kind of just that's kind of part of his DNA a little bit.
I think that's the thing that stood out to me the most, other than his ability to avoid mistakes on the field, was his natural leadership.
Yeah.
Most rookies don't come into a team like this and take over for a veteran quarterback in unexpected circumstances and have the team behind them to the degree that he did.
Yeah.
How did he accomplish that? What does that say about his charisma?
Well, it says a lot, but you earn that by performing. So, there's guys with great charisma, or they aren't all that great at what they do.
Present company excluded?
Yeah, present company excluded. But I look at it like you got to earn that first, and he did it out here on the field. He wasn't out there, acting like he was the team leader when he was taking, splitting third team reps. He was taking advantage of his reps, but in the meantime, he would still do what came natural with the group he was working with. It just, when the situation arose, he was ready for that. Just because he's been doing that his whole life. He's started 3.5 years at Mississippi State, playing in SEC, playing against a lot of times teams that had maybe more talent. I want to say SEC. I think Mississippi State's probably as good a team as there is in college football, but there's going to be times where they had their backs against the wall, and Dak would go out there and just like he did when he played as a rookie in the NFL. I don't think he really differentiates what role he's in. If he's competing for the third-team quarterback or he's got to be the starter, he does it the right way.
We were interested we talked to him recently for the same podcast, and he brought up the fact that he'd been watching Matt Ryan a whole lot. Is that something, as the offense coordinator, you said, hey, this would be a good idea, or did he kind of gravitate to that on his own? What was that about?
That was a combination of, we study other teams, but
sure.
He's doing that on his own because I'm going to say, hey, Dak, it'd look good if you told people that you were studying some of these other quarterbacks. He doesn't really, he looks at it like he's doing it for a reason. I don't think anyone played better football last year in the NFL than Matt Ryan. You can argue Tom Brady every year. Probably you never lose that argument, but Matt had a great year. But he also saw what Matt's progression was in his career. He said, Matt had to do something different probably in the last couple of years in his career to get to play at that level, because he was always playing at a really good level, but he played elite. And so he's sitting there thinking maybe catch some nuggets from him and watch somebody that is playing at the top of their game that runs similar plays maybe. That's probably a good place to start.
Let's get your thoughts on a couple of other offensive issues or questions. What about Zeke Elliott? He's your other second-year guy who performed at an incredibly high level as a rookie. Can you see ways to use him even more in the offense, third downs, passing game, those sorts of things?
He'll probably play more. I hesitate to say we're playing anymore because I feel like, the workload he gets is pretty high, especially for his first year. But I got to admit, it's hard to ever take him off the field. So we still got to manage that. But I can see him being involved a little more in situational football. That's not just the obvious. But it's not at the expense of him being, we want him still pretty fresh down the stretch. And if you run the tread off the tire for the first 2/3 of the season, sometimes you don't get the return on your
you want him for
time.
December and
you still. So we got to always kind of tug at ourselves a little bit on what that is. But we certainly would like to amp it up a little bit.
On the offensive line, it's sort of rare to have three basically all-pro offensive linemen. So you guys are known for maybe having the best offensive lineman or line in the league. But you've got some guys working at different spots right now.
Yeah.
How is that shaping up? And do you, Collins, out there at tackle right now, with you got Cooper working inside. Chaz Green working inside. How's that looking?
Well, it's good. We started that way. Got 9 OTAs in, and we've got this week's mini camp to kind of get ourselves headed in that direction. I think truly when we put the pads on, we're going to find out more. But I think it's a good foundation. Lyle played tackle in college. It's not foreign to him. He's definitely got the physical characteristics for it and traits that you're looking for. So that could work out really well for us. But we know he can play left guard too. So we'll see. We'll get some guys back in the mix. Cooper had to play basic center because Joe Looney got hurt, so he had to play more center. But I always look, that's going to be good for us to have him get to those center reps. He would have not had that exposure as a center. So if he ever had to call upon him, he's got a lot of reps in our offense at center, and then maybe focus more on guard in the camp.
Former 7th pick in the draft overall. Do you see that kind of ability in this guy?
Yeah, I think we see it. He's definitely fitting in good with the group. He had a tough injury, so getting his confidence back, coming off of that a few years back. But there was a reason he was picked that high, and when we can really play him at his true position, which is guard, in my mind, we'll be able to see more. And that's coming in training camp, we believe, more. And then the one that would be interesting is Chaz. We liked how Chaz played for 2 games at left tackle when he played for us. And The right tackle thing's still something we look at. We've been putting him in there at left guard. He's definitely got the ability to do it. His thing is just have to be able to, his availability is going to have to be a big part of it, and Chaz is working really hard to get himself in great shape to be ready to compete.
Why don't you ask Scott the last question about the receivers?
Yeah.
He's got to go, I think.
Yeah, I know. I appreciate you giving me that idea.
Better me than him.
Yeah, no. But with Dez, obviously he's been banged up at times. New quarterback. Where's the chemistry there with he and Dak, and what do you think is like the most important thing for Dez going to see? Obviously, he's got elite talent, but we don't maybe always see the consistency.
Yeah, I mean, Dez's thing he's been the last 2 years as opposed to my first year. He's been banged up.
Yeah,
he's missed significant time. It's hard on receivers to have that kind of year. I think Dez played as good a football as he's played since I've been here at the last 5-6 weeks. I mean, that really was as consistent a football as he's played, and he really had some really good games. And a couple of games I felt like he was a dominant performer in his position. So if he can just kind of stay in that mode, which I've seen some really good indication from him this offseason. His mind is in such a good place right now that we can really build on that. And he's got great chemistry with Dak. He really respects him for a young player and for what he is about, and he plays hard for him, and that's big.
I thought he was going to ask you about Ryan Switzer and Cole Beasley and whether you can use them together. And
yeah, we might try to. If we can get them on the field at the same time. Right now we got to get both those rascals healthy. So,
Scott, thanks for your time.
All right, guys.
We appreciate it.
Yeah,
take care.
Hey, appreciate it.
And that was Scott Linehan, offensive coordinator for the Cowboys. And Ed, I thought some interesting things there. By the way, we're thankful to Scott, who is a supporter of the podcast, because he did like a long, for people that have never been to one of these practices, it's a little more informal. That it's kind of like training camp. Basically, you kind of wait out and can visit with some of the coaches as they leave the field. And so he talked for, I'd say 15, 20 minutes with all the reporters. Then Babe Laufenberg.
We always pick the guy. We always target the guy who is wanted by everybody else and is going to take the longest, and we let everybody else walk off the field. So now we're completely committed to Scott Linehan, who's the only one still out there, and we're praying, prayer after prayer, that he will give us a few minutes before he runs off to lunch.
I'm just glad
in this case
hear
he did.
that you pray. I didn't really know that aspect of your life.
Look at my hands. I was an altar boy at one point. I'd rather not talk about that time.
Okay, all right. We'll move on past that quickly. But he did. And then Babe Laufenberg, and then
Brad Sham.
Brad Sham. Brad Sham wears capri pants. Those are interesting. Those kind of those long shorts. It's an interesting look.
He's in the Holy Land now.
Oh, good. Get him over there. That's good. I hope he enjoys that. But
And the funny thing is Scott was kind of going through some like mechanics with Babe, as if Babe were thinking about a comeback. And my thought was, if Babe had been this interested in being coached when he was a player, he might have had a longer career.
You think so? He could. I bet he hung around for like 7 years, just on various rosters,
like a lot of
until a lot of backup until he was like the starter.
They're great until they have to play.
Yeah, until that 1 year he got named the starter. It's like, oh, this didn't work out.
He finished the season right for Aikman.
Yeah, but I'm talking
Atlanta,
maybe when he was in Washington at one point. I think he was maybe going to be the starter.
But a great guy, fantastic guy.
If you say
like
so,
that sort of thing.
if you're into that, that's cool.
Kind of wears some odd attire out there.
No, that's fine. That's fine. He kind of a Lawrence of Arabia look that he has. So, Ed, as we kind of wind down the summer, I do want to say this. I like some of the stuff Scott Linehan said. One thing,
we're winding down the summer.
Yes. Just roll with me on this. Okay. The Dak. And we keep hearing this, and we've talked a little bit about it, but the fact that Dak just sort of on his own seems to – you've seen this. Now, Ed, you chronicled a young Elway. I mean, that was a guy you sort of saw come up there with the Broncos. I don't know exactly what he was like from the start. Was he the ultimate leader immediately? You obviously have a better angle at that. But what we've seen, Dak was in a really tough situation last year because Tony's still hanging around. It's sort of Tony's team. Dak gets in. Dak handles it beautifully. Tony does the whole concession speech. Didn't really get that approved by the coaches, and sort of gives it to Dak, say, I'm okay with everything.
He gave Dak something he had already taken.
Exactly. Yeah. And then Dak the way he conducts himself and just acts around his teammates, he comes across as a veteran quarterback.
Well, and you mentioned John Elway, and another quarterback whose career I chronicled was Troy Aikman's, and in both of those cases, they're the number one pick in the entire draft, and they're Hall of Famers, and they both won multiple Super Bowls. And yet neither one of them made it through their rookie season as the starter. They began the season as a starter. In Aikman's case, he suffered an injury that took him out of the lineup for a significant period of time. And he went 0-11 as a rookie starter. And Elway, he lined up infamously behind the guard one time to take a snap. I mean, this guy was completely in over his head. Physical marvel. Probably threw as hard a ball as I've ever seen, with the possible exception of Brett Favre. But he was benched for Steve DeBerg because of his inadequacy as a rookie quarterback. Dan Reeves benched him. So what Dak did is really astonishing. And in fact, there have only been 5 players in the Super Bowl era who have had 100 quarterback rating or more in all 16 of their rookie starts. And the other 4 all started the Super Bowl in their second season. And 3 of them won it. And those other guys are Kurt Warner, Dan Marino, who obviously is the loser that we're talking about, Ben Roethlisberger, and Russell Wilson.
Loser of the Super Bowl.
Loser of the Super Bowl. So that's the kind of expectation that some people have for Dak Prescott now. That what he's trying to do now is something very few quarterbacks have ever had the opportunity to attain, and even fewer have succeeded.
Yeah, it is. It's remarkable to watch. By the way, last night, I know you're always kind of wondering what's Mosley up to. I want to show off my versatility. I anchored the Mavs draft coverage for the Mavs, for Dallas Mavs, the website and Facebook Live. You're really starting to. Facebook Live's growing on you. In fact, I wish Frito was shooting this live as we speak, but I was there live. On TV and other various places.
I kind of feel betrayed
that I did this without you,
without my consent.
Would you really?
I thought you were wholly involved in this podcast.
I am.
Thoroughly devoted.
I am
singularly focused, and then I find out you're running around doing basketball junkets.
Literally, none of my junkets, as you call them, none of my gigs I get paid for, but I enjoy them.
That's your own problem.
I enjoy them. No, I really do. I really do. I think my mic's shaking because of your legs. This
Again
constant. Yes. Okay. Here's what I want to focus on because that's some good stuff on Dak, and I know you have some stuff on Zeke as well. But as we're kind of getting closer and thinking, we're 30 days today. We're 30 days away, or 29 days away from Jerry doing that State of the Cowboys union, and he and Steven and Jason sitting.
They'll never
up there.
be a better team than they are that day.
That's right. That's right. That's when everything looks gorgeous. Although we all know that from time to time there's a suspension that happens. This year's suspension is David Irving. To start the year. Now, Gregory's just stays suspended year after year. I don't even think we talk about him. But now, Ed, my plan is to relatively early in camp try to get out there, get a look at this team. I haven't nailed down exactly what week, but I do want us to talk about sort of as we get closer to camp, a couple of these so-called position battles, but mainly just different parts of the team. We know Dak and Zeke, and we expect them to sort of take the next leap. We know who's going to play in wide receiver. So there's not a lot of, but from an offensive standpoint, before we get to the defense, and Linehan talked about it a little bit, this is a fascinating offensive line because you just don't find many offensive lines that have 3 all-pro caliber. I mean, these are all pros. All 3 of those guys have been all-pro. And that's to me, that's more important than being in a Pro Bowl because that's a consensus.
You're talking about Zach Martin, Travis Frederick,
and Tyron Smith.
Yeah.
So, but the other 2 starters for the Cowboys right now, if Collins goes out, Lyle Collins, and he plays right tackle, and then they have to decide, of course, what they're, Cooper's here at left guard, Chaz Green getting a chance at guard. These are really, at least because people think, well, Lyle Collins was a first-round talent. Yeah, but you know how many games he played last year? What, 2 or 3 before he got hurt and was out the rest of the season? I mean, you're asking for, 2 major positions. You've got relatively inexperienced guys.
Well, Cooper is an interesting guy that they signed late in the season, and it was kind of, hey, we think he might still have this talent that made him the 7th overall pick in his draft class, and that's great. But he failed the Arizona Cardinals. He was traded as part of the Chandler Jones trade to New England, so that now he's on the best team in football, right? They won the Super Bowl last year. He gets cut there. He gets signed by Cleveland, the worst team in football. He gets cut there, and then he comes to Dallas, and somehow, he fits this scheme better potentially. I mean, I think they know he's not a complete player. They know that strength is an issue for him that could show up when he's playing in the interior part of the line, especially in the run game. But this is a guy they obviously had a high grade on. Will McClay did when he came out in the draft. They were interested in him at the time. So we'll see what he does.
This almost never works. I mean, I should point out, like the guy was a number 1 draft pick. Surely, what happens is generally like this guy has done. They bounce around to a few teams. They keep trying, and nothing really works out. The Cowboys did, and this was a different situation because he actually was okay for the Cardinals. He wasn't great because they took him like 4th or 5th overall. I'm talking about Leonard Davis. And the Cowboys got him in free agency. It gave him some pretty good money, different than Cooper in that he wasn't cut by these teams, but he was a guy that didn't quite live up to expectations. He was probably the 4th or 5th overall pick for the Cardinals, and then came to Dallas and had a couple of Pro Bowl seasons. It was a pretty good part of a line that had Gerard, Leonard Davis. I think our old buddy Marco might have been over there at some point. And so that was but again, you're right. And Chaz Green's going to get his opportunity as well.
He was supposed to be the next right tackle, right? I mean, he was the guy who was the heir apparent to Doug Free.
He had to play left tackle when Tyron Smith was banged up late last season.
Back problem. So it'll be interesting, I think, at right tackle to see what happens at that position with Collins, because the Cowboys have really spent a year and a half since they acquired him telling us he's not a tackle, he's a guard, and yet now they're out of some measure of desperation looking at him at least at right tackle. We'll see if he plays out there. I don't think they're as committed to this as everybody else seems to have portrayed it. Like, I think they view this as the right time to look at different people in new positions and see how they manage that, knowing that they can always go back and put Collins at left guard and put Chaz Green, if they trust him, out at right tackle. But that right tackle position is going to be an important one this year because they play the AFC West, and everybody in the AFC West has a great pass rusher. And nobody just plays their great pass rusher, whether it's, Von Miller, Khalil Mack, or Joey Bosa. They don't just play them on one side anymore, coming around the backside. They're looking to affect the quarterback, knowing the guy's coming at him against a pass protector who maybe is not as good as a Tyron Smith on the left side. So that's going to be a position that teams try to exploit anyway, and they're going to be up against some of the best pass rushers in football in that division.
It's going to be an interesting one to watch as we continue to talk about what's coming up with training camp, and then, of course, Ed's enshrinement in the Hall of Fame. Some people will.
Enshrinement.
Ed, do you have a jacket? Will they give you a jacket like a gold? I think the media folks.
I think I'd have a hard time finding one that would fit me with those guys. Don't you think?
Those are big
Maybe
people.
Kurt Warner's would fit me. He's going in this year. I'm not really big in I'm just being recognized.
What about Ray Guy's jacket? He's a punter. He's sort of thin like you.
I learned a long time ago, and it's interesting you talk about Ray Guy and a punter, because it was Mike Saxon, who was a punter for the Cowboys at the time, who when I came here when I was young, I was in my 20s, challenged me to an off-season game of racquetball, which I thought I was actually pretty good at. I know I was a very good tennis player, and I thought, hey, racquetball's kind of the same thing. I can handle this one. It's like he's a punter. It's a different level when they're professional athletes. No reporter, no journalist should ever engage in an athletic contest with a professional athlete ever.
Unless, I'll just say this, I'll add something to that.
Oh boy.
If you have a chance to face Drew Henson in golf, I would go ahead and do that.
Or football.
No.
Just kidding, Drew.
I love Drew. Yeah, I really do. He's awesome. A friend of mine. Drew, keep watching the Doomsday podcast.
Oh, he watches? I withdraw that comment.
Yeah. Golly. What's that course out there where it used to play the Colony? What's the thing where they have the replica
tribute?
holes? the tribute. And so I'd play with Tony. Tony once got mad at me. This is back when Tony and I were in better times. And Tony didn't like that I spent as much time talking to Drew Henson as I did. And that was kind of a tough to go back. You've had quarterback situations like that. They don't always love each other. Tony didn't love Drew. Drew did not love Tony.
You think Dak loves Tony?
Yeah, okay. Not like he likes Mark Sanchez or Kellen Moore.
Exactly.
But that's okay because it is a competitive fire kind of thing, and he took his job, and it's just natural. I think in time they'll grow together. But I was playing with Tony one time, and he on 18 at the Colony is like the 18 at St. Andrews, pretty straight. Hard to miss the fairway, although I think I've given it a try. And Tony put one up on the clubhouse. The clubhouse is probably 50 to 100 yards back behind 18, and Tony just bounced one off
on his second shot or on his tee shot?
No, I think he went for it off the tee. Yeah, it was a 300. It's probably a 340-yard shot.
So did you win the hole?
Yeah, I mean, I got up and down. Just went at it. It's okay. A little match play.
I've also played golf with Tony before he was Tony.
Before
he was Tony, I played golf with Tony Romo.
Yeah, I think I arranged that.
He talked about during the round about how the Cowboys had an interest in trading for Favre late in his career when he was available. Parcells was the coach.
Yeah,
and I said, I kind of heard that. And he said, well, what the deal went dead when the Packers asked for me to be in the trade. And I'm like, really? The Cowboys didn't trade for Favre because they didn't want to give you up. And maybe it was true, as it turns out, right? He was good enough, as it turned out.
No, that's the kind
of tidbit. He had a hell of a good career.
That's good, Ed. I like that. We should stop right there, but I'm not. I'm just going to.
You didn't end at the right place last week either.
I'm going to continue on. Now, one other thing I want to mention is as we look ahead to training camp, and remind me, I want to. This morning, I've actually been at a funeral of a former Cowboys great, and I want to pay tribute to him. But defensively, when we get out to camp, I hope you'll come with me. But I know this Canton thing could kind of get in the way. There's a lot of battles going on. Charlton, how can Taco Charlton? Can he be an immediate contributor? Who's going? Where's the pass rush going to come from? Is Tyrone Crawford? Year after year, people are like, well, he's going to do it, and he's been fine. He hasn't been anything spectacular.
Yeah, he hasn't justified the money they're paying him to be the most important lineman in Rod Marinelli's scheme, which is the 3 technique. In fact, they're playing him outside right now. Is that correct?
Yeah.
I think when we were at camp, they were playing him outside. So they actually moved him to the right defensive end position, which is supposed to be the pass rush position. The inside pass rush position is supposed to come from the 3 technique tackle, which he played when they signed him to this massive new contract. And I think it's interesting that, most people in the league see their number 1 pick, Taco Charlton, as a classic left tackle. Or left defensive end, and that seems to be where the Cowboys are giving him his early reps. He's on the other side, right defensive end.
That is, you're right, and this is a team that has gone into several seasons with sort of the likes of Jack Crawford and some guys you're kind of like, now obviously he's gone. This defense with Barry Church gone, Brandon Carr gone, Mo Claiborne gone. I mean, this is really fascinating, and they're going to need a lot of young players to make immediate impacts. Somebody we don't talk about, and I used to watch him play in the Big 12. Now, Malik Collins went to Nebraska, and he actually, at times made a pretty decent impact last year. Charles Tapper comes back in this year, and he was banged up and wasn't able to play. I think finally went on the IR last year. I mean, you sort of forget about players like that, former 4th-round picks that miss a season, and of course we focus on who are the new guys, who's going to make the impact.
And Jalen Smith.
Well, that's going to be a huge story. Now we both got to look at Jalen out here finally when the reporters got to see him during the mini camp, and I thought he moved pretty well. I just don't think we have any clue until with that orthotic device. Until what's that thing called?
An AFO?
AFO, like what he'll do in a game. I mean, I just don't think
or even
we know.
in a practice. How many days in a row is he going to be able to, engage in these physical practices where he's being blocked and people around his legs for the first time since he suffered this horrific injury? I mean, he was a guest of the podcast. You went through the list earlier. I don't know if you mentioned him, but he was fascinating and a very uniquely determined guy and the kind of guy that everybody pulls for. But the reality of this situation is it's far from anything close to a sure thing that he's going to have any kind of impact on this football team this year. He's a guy who's going to be probably garnering the most scrutiny during the practice sessions and the early preseason games, assuming he's even physically healthy enough to play in those. And other than that, I think you're right about these, they're counting on these young defensive linemen who really have not performed at this level. Beyond that, they have a young secondary, as you mentioned. They're replacing their top two corners. Now they drafted two kids who I think they're really impressed with.
Yeah.
With two of their first three picks, and all three of their first three picks went to defense. But I mean, can you really succeed in the NFL, a passing league, when you don't have a proven pass rusher and you're playing a lot of young guys up front and even younger guys in the secondary? I mean, that could be a recipe for disaster on defense, or at least a defense that doesn't play well early.
I think so, and as you know, it puts a lot of stress on the offense if the defense is allowing a lot. It'll be interesting. I mean, Jeff Heath, ball seems to find him. At least he seems to be someone who has the most interceptions not only in practice but in games. He's been lit up a lot over the years. How will he as a starter?
They seem to have a lot of confidence in him.
Yeah.
And I'll give them credit, the benefit of the doubt, because I didn't see it in Barry Church early on. He blew out his Achilles, and Jason Garrett liked him enough that they gave him a long-term contract while he was rehabbing an Achilles tear. And they were right about him. So maybe they'll be right about Heath as well.
I would hope so. Now, Ed, I want to remind everybody, and we give our Patreon folks special access. We do special videos. I like to get on there every once in a while. I answer some questions. I won't require you to do that unless you want to join me in doing that.
So I'm dismissed?
That's right. Patreon.com/Doomsday Podcast. That's how you get to the page. And then there are different levels you can sign up for. Hey, do I want Ed to maybe come over to the house?
Stop by the house and
yeah,
lemonade.
Yeah, that's a high level. I mean, that'll cost you at least about $25.
I like the way you pulled me out of this first part of this. Like, there's a second level if you want to pay for me to be a part of it.
That's right. Different levels of access is what we offer. But the main thing is we just love interacting, and we're going to give you a little, it's kind of an insider status, and we're going to have fun with that, and we're going to make it worth your while. Like, if I ever get an email or somebody goes, I didn't feel like I got enough, the next week I'm going to try to give them something more. Like there's no telling what I'll do.
I will not be as responsive to our viewers.
I'm very willing to engage with these folks. Patreon.com/Doomsday and Doomsday Podcast. And by the way, just so you know, you'll get to know these guys. Crossover Media Group, Scott Calca, Ron Hartenbaum, they're with us now. They're going to be the guys out. They've joined forces, and they've got huge contacts out in the advertising world. And so as more and more people come to us and are excited about this, because we are getting a lot of downloads and traffic and that kind of thing, I just want to welcome aboard. So, Ed, say hello to the good folks from Crossover Media Group.
Crossover Media, we are proud to have you as our corporate sponsors. And I'm sure Mosley is already hiding money under the mattress.
I'd love to be hiding some. I really would. I'm sure it'll pour in. And but the truth is, we just love doing this, and they've really been eager to work with us from the start, and I'm kind of excited.
Are they the ones who encourage you to take a 4-week hiatus?
They may. Nobody has to give me much encouragement to take a 4-week hiatus. Let me tell you that.
You wanted to do this last week, I think.
That's totally my. What is Frito
I think
doing?
He's shooting something.
Yeah, I don't know.
Normsclubhouse.com.
Frito wants us to say no. He's part of it. He's part of this gambling ring. www.normsclubhouse.com.
Did I tell you that one of the many offers that I got preliminarily when I was laid off by ESPN was from somebody in London who put me in contact with somebody else in London, and it turned out to be an international gambling consortium that wanted me to have a phone call with them on every Saturday, the day before games, to go over what unique team dynamics might have occurred during the week and updated injury information.
NFL?
NFL. And in my infinite wisdom, I decided that I probably wouldn't have won the McCann Award had I been found to be involved with these people, which I'm not. I'm not involved with these people.
Could you give them my name?
You know what? I wouldn't want to lose you as a partner, and I think one bad piece of information that cost somebody a significant sum of money could
lose a limb,
lead to you being found in a back of a sedan.
Hey, last thing I did want to say this: Tony Liscio, who was the left tackle for the Cowboys for many years, and then came back in the 1971 Super Bowl, which you remember, Ed. They beat the Dolphins.
I was a Dolphins fan
handily, 24-3. Yeah. And Liscio came out of retirement. Tony did, and was able to help lead the Cowboys. And today I was at his funeral. 76 years old. And as many of those players, we wonder kind of what happens and what the concussions and what all that means. We're still trying to figure that out. Had ALS at the end, and we've seen too many folks with that, different than some of the other things people have experienced with dementia and all of that. But ALS, and we lost him at age 76. And a beautiful service over at St. Patrick's there in Lake Highlands. It's a Lake Highlands family. His daughter, Michelle, who's great friends with Dan Reeves' daughters. They all grew up together. Bob Lilly, that whole bunch, all came up together. And so his daughter taught my daughter in grade school, Michelle. So anyway, just an awesome Michelle Patterson, that is. She'll be listening to this. But awesome family, and Roger Staubach had some really neat things to say, and it's always good to see Roger. And he was one of the pallbearers and one of the speakers who eulogized Tony Liscio. So,
and those were some unusually close teams. And to give you another example of that, I've played in Cliff Harris's charity golf tournament for juvenile diabetes for the last few years, and this year they had just a remarkable number of former teammates there, including they flew in Craig Morton, because I think this is the 40th anniversary of the Cowboys beating the Broncos in that Super Bowl. And so Craig told this wonderful story that I could share now, or we could save it for...
No, go ahead. Okay. Go ahead. Yeah.
Or save it for next week when we're not on. You're on hiatus.
Yeah. Let's call it a recess.
A reset.
Recess.
Oh, recess. Okay. Yeah. So Morton is telling this story about how, for some reason, he's the Broncos, starting quarterback. He obviously has been in Dallas, and at times, Tom Landry rotated he and Roger Staubach into games. They were that close. So anyway, he gets traded to Denver from the Giants. He goes from Dallas to the Giants, does nothing in New York, and gets traded to Denver, where he is the player of the year that season. Yeah. And the Broncos go to the Super Bowl for the first time and play the Cowboys, right, with the Doomsday defense. And Morton says the other day at the golf tournament that the day before the game, at their last practice, Red Miller, the head coach who's going to be inducted into the Broncos Ring of Honor this year, came up with the idea that everybody was going to weigh in. And nobody really understood why you would weigh in the day before a Super Bowl, but that's what Red decided. And to everyone's horror, Tom Classic, one of the starting guards, weighed in at 224 pounds, which is approximately what a running back or a wide receiver today would weigh.
Yeah.
And they were all horrified, especially Morton. And Morton said, I went back to my room and I put on tape to see who Classic was going to block, and it was Randy White.
Oh, man.
And he said, we're screwed. I'm screwed. And so to this day, when you ask Craig Morton what he most remembers about that game, he says the ceiling in the Superdome. He spent his whole day on his back. I think he threw 4 picks in the first half.
That's good.
But anyway, and it was noted by Derek Dooley, the current wide receivers coach, who spoke because one of his children also has juvenile diabetes. But just the incredible turnout that all these years later, somebody like Cliff Harris gets. Drew Pearson was there, Rayfield Wright was there, Dorsett was there. Staubach's usually there, but he was overseas in Israel with an NFL delegation. But really incredible the way those guys support each other these years later.
They do, and it is a fraternity, and it never.
And I played with Ed Too Tall Jones and Doug Donnelly.
How's Ed swing it?
Ed is a terrifying looking figure when he's standing up at the tee box with a golf club in his hand. And but the funny thing is, he's a tremendous putter.
Oh, Ed is.
Oh, he got it next to the hole every single time.
Good lag putter. I've always thought too tall to be a good lag putter.
Right next to the. You'd think he'd be a long drive champion, but he's really a great putter.
Okay, well, I tell you, it's been a lot of fun. Excited for the beginning of training camp, and we'll get to sing up and running again. Thanks to everybody who's been so extremely supportive. And Ed, I have to say, our friend like Shereen Williams used to be with the Fort Worth Star Telegram, now with Pro Football Talk. She's been great about posting our stuff. I noticed Deadspin. I think we had some stuff up on there. I don't want to get into that. But a lot of people around the country have been incredibly supportive, and that's helped us grow, and that's helped get the name out there. The Doomsday podcast will continue to grow, and I think during the season it's going to be
a training camp. We're going to be at Canton, Ohio for the Hall of Fame ceremony where both Jerry and I will be recognized in some way for our outstanding contributions.
It's going to be a lot of fun, and this whole NFC East, I mean, I want to continue to let people know we're looking for more for unique ways to even bring in more of our NFC East fans. So who knows? We may come up with a way to give some of these NFC East cities their own Doomsday podcast. We'd probably call it something different, but
is that a trial balloon?
It's well, no. I just want to say we're thinking of a lot of folks, and we're thinking of a lot of ways to be successful. Thanks to Frito Nation Productions. Hadn't he done a good job? I don't know what he's like self-serving right now.
Shooting some
he's shooting video of like some project he has.
Oh, he must have us up live right now.
Are we live on Patreon right now? Yeah, www.patreon.com/Doomsday Podcast. People are already signing up, various levels. You can sort of sign up for whatever different level. I will say this, for the sort of secret videos that you get, that's one level, and then as you just kind of work your way up, we'll be much more specific when we relaunch, and I'll get you guys more more information. But I want to take care of our folks. If they're gonna shell out a little cash, I want to do something for them. In fact, I might even, during our hiatus, give them a little something.
Like what?
I mean, just
like something in the mail.
No. I'm not going to send out like flyers. I'm just going to I may just shoot some videos at my house.
Oh boy.
I think I'm capable of
What more could you want?
I think this
Will it be of you running your hands through your hair to get that effect?
There's nothing. The hair's actually gotten really short compared to what that was. That one Frito loved to put out there where I had some bad head.
Out of old school or something.
All right, Frito, you've got your work cut out for you. Get to editing. That is the Doomsday Podcast. Good night, everybody.
A lot can happen between falling in love with a house online and owning it. Between imagining living there and breathing in your new home for the first time. Having an advocate who can help you navigate the complex world of financing, inspections, negotiating, analyzing the market, and talking through any anxieties that may pop up, that can make all the difference. That's what the expertise of a Realtor can do for you. Realtors are members of the National Association of Realtors and bound by a code of ethics, because that's who we are.
With the Wells Fargo Active Cash Credit Card, you can earn unlimited 2% cash rewards on purchases you want and purchases you need. That means you earn on what you want, like trying out that new workout class, and 2% cash rewards on what you need, like a foam roller for your sore muscles. That's the beauty of the Active Cash Credit Card. It's ready when you are, with unlimited 2% cash rewards. The Wells Fargo Active Cash Credit Card. That's real life ready. Terms apply. Learn more at wellsfargo.com/activecash.